Hi there, and thank you for watching this talk. My name is Phoebe O'Hayan, and we're going to talk about how to develop more verbal fluency. How do you respond when a colleague asks you, "Hey, what is your opinion about this?" Can you share a few words from your perspective? Do you always know the right words to say, or do you find it hard to find the exact words you need to express yourself? And here's another example. How comfortable are you answering questions during a presentation instead of afterwards? Are you uncomfortable with interviews for which you cannot prepare? And how well do you improvise when someone puts you on the spot? Well, some people are more comfortable in situations like this than others. If you have trouble feeling confident in situations like this, chances are that you will gain a lot more confidence if you invest in developing more verbal fluency. Increasing your verbal fluency is also extremely beneficial for those who are comfortable in situations I just mentioned. Before we dive into developing more verbal fluency, I'd like to thank you for watching this talk. Feel free to contact me, give me a thumbs up, ask questions, and provide feedback. Leaders, influencers, self-proclaimed gurus, you name it. From Steve Jobs to Russell Brand, what do they all have in common? They can easily produce words. They have incredible verbal fluency. In other words, they have mastered the ability to express themselves clearly and easily. Their words appear to be arranged in a meaningful manner, and their performance seems easily achieved and effortless. Speaking with great verbal fluency entails utilizing the art, quality, and power of forceful or persuasive expressiveness. But exactly what is verbal fluency? Verbal fluency is a cognitive function that aids in the retrieval of information from memory. Executive control over cognitive processes such as selective attention, selective inhibition, mental set shifting, internal response generation, and self-monitoring is required for successful retrieval. That means verbal fluency is about an individual's ability to retrieve specific information. You need to be able to come up with words to say. But here's the thing, you don't have all day. So it stands to reason that response generation is important for verbal fluency. It necessitates quick and inventive response generation. It's not just about responding to what others say or answering questions. It's also important to be able to think of things to say while building your own monologue. Most people who want to improve their verbal fluency struggle to come up with things in real life. And understanding the process of information retrieval from memory can help you improve your verbal fluency. As previously stated, selective attention, selective inhibition, mental set shifting, internal response generation, and self-monitoring are important cognitive processes to try to control in order to improve your verbal fluency. Next, we'll go over each individual cognitive process. Let's talk about selective attention, which is one of the key cognitive processes influencing verbal fluency. Let's take a look at what it is and why it is important to control. Selective attention refers to the processes that enable a person to choose and focus on specific input for further processing while simultaneously suppressing irrelevant or distracting information. This relevant or distracting information can occur externally, such as auditory or visual stimulation in the environment, or internally, such as distracting thoughts or responses that interfere with your focus and performance of the task at hand, coming up with relevant things to say in real time. This brings me to my first key principle. When someone speaks or asks a question, pay attention and listen. Select and focus on particular inputs for further processing. Okay, let's move on. So how do we improve your selective attention? Number 1 is exercise. It has been proven that exercise improves selective attention. High-intensity interval training is most effective. It improves cognitive control and increases focus and memory. Improving your fitness and energy levels also increases your attention span. The second one is all about training focused attention. Paying deliberate attention to one task will allow you to complete it with far greater efficiency, and hyperfocus will result in better formed memories and recall. This will assist you in improving your verbal fluency when discussing associative topics. So try to devote time to activities that require your undivided attention. These do not have to be important activities. Consider playing some chess or doing a Sudoku, or start working on something that requires your undivided attention, such as a project that requires you to use some tools. Another thing that works well for me is preparing a talk. I enjoy writing a talk, reading it a few times, and then challenging myself to deliver it from memory. The third one is sleep. That's right, it's that simple. Sleep is essential for maintaining optimal attention levels. You also sleep better after performing tasks that require selective attention. And number 4 is take breaks. Keep in mind that you are teaching your brain how to control the process of selective attention. You can't pay attention to everything all day. I began by focusing for 20 minutes, followed by a 5-minute break. I now do 50 minutes of selective attention, followed by a 10-minute break. I recommend this because constant brain stimulation is bad for improving selective attention. Things will be registered as less intense and less important over time if you constantly stimulate your brain by focusing on your attention. Okay, so much about selective attention. Let's delve into internal response generation, focusing on 3 key topics. The first one is generation process. The second one is retrieval from memory. And the third one is suppression of irrelevant responses. In general, the process begins with input. Someone speaks to you or asks you a question. The first thing you do is parse the input to form your understanding of it. You then consider and interpret the context. You'll then begin reasoning. In other words, you begin to consider the input in a way that makes sense to you. Your personal perspective is taking shape. From this point forward, your feelings, creativity, and knowledge fuel your ability to formulate output. Your ability to retrieve information from memory is critical for responding and formulating output. And this brings us to the third and most important topic: your ability to suppress irrelevant, repetitive, or inappropriate output that arises in your mind. Not everything you come up with is relevant. Part of the process is trying to come up with good responses and output that makes sense to the people that you're talking to. Verbal fluency is not about being talkative. It is about being able to express your thoughts and feelings in such a way that listeners understand what you're saying and trying to convey. This is why the suppression of irrelevant responses is very important, because irrelevance clutters the intelligibility, clarity, and strength of your message. Here are a few useful things you can do to train yourself and develop more verbal fluency. First, get used to the spotlight situations and monitor yourself. The first thing I would suggest is to go on camera and answer these questions. Request that a friend or a colleague ask you questions about a prepared topic or a random subject. This exercise will significantly improve your verbal fluency over time. It's just one of several methods for putting yourself on the spot. When you're on camera and put on the spot, you'll get used to improvising and train your response generation. You're preparing for situations in which others may put you on the spot and ask for your opinion. It's a safe and enjoyable way to naturally get used to speaking at a moment's notice. Taking improv classes is another thing you can do to help you think faster on your feet. To become quick, you must stimulate and train a type of thinking known as thinking on your feet. You need to get used to juggling things in real time. You are not only putting yourself on the spot in improv classes, you are also training your attention and adaptability. Another valuable side effect of putting yourself on the spotlight is the fact that you will fail. You will fail frequently. Failure, however, teaches us valuable lessons. You learn what you can do better each time, especially if you solicit feedback and observe your own performances. Become a knowledge sponge and develop your vocabulary. Develop a habit of reading and listening to podcasts about topics that interest you. When you consume a lot of content on topics that interest you, you not only gain exposure to new concepts, but you also see how they are used and presented, as well as how others react to them. The final thing you can do to train yourself and develop more verbal fluency is to train yourself with verbal fluency tests. There are numerous types of verbal fluency tests. However, they are frequently a type of psychological test in which you must produce as many words as possible from a given category in a given amount of time. Okay, I'll pause here. Are you ready for the next part? Let's talk about mental set shifting. Mental set shifting, the brain's ability to adapt your behavior and thoughts to new, changing, or unexpected events, is known as cognitive shifting. In other words, shifting is the ability to recognize when something isn't working and make the necessary changes to adapt to new circumstances. Mental shifting is the most important component of cognitive flexibility, and the two are often referred to as the same concept. However, cognitive flexibility refers to the ability to adapt to a change, while mental shifting is the process that makes it possible to adapt to the change. Shifting plays an important role in verbal fluency. It enables you to generate words and concepts that will help you adapt to a changing situation, which is common when you're on the spot. When people provide new input by asking questions or responding, the situation changes all the time. Mental set shifting enables you to gather information from your surroundings and respond to it in a flexible and effective manner by adjusting your behavior to the changes that the situation necessitates. So instead of being stubborn, try to be as adaptable as possible. Practice explaining the same concept in various ways to train yourself to clarify your message and responses as needed. How? Get a devil's advocate. Ask a friend or colleague to play the devil's advocate and move through critique creatively. Teach yourself to think outside of the box. These are simple, silly situations in which we know we are supposed to change our minds, but we don't. And I understand that seeing things from a different perspective can be difficult. But it's critical to improve your perceived verbal fluency in the eyes of others. Improve your mental set shifting skills by experimenting with different ways to convey a message, monitoring how your responses are perceived, and then thinking constructively about how to move forward and improve. Learn how to carry yourself properly in any situation. Look at things from different perspectives and challenge yourself to find different solutions to the same problem. You'll notice that you'll become better at tolerating errors and changes over time, and you'll become much more relatable. One last thing about verbal fluency before I wrap up this talk. The act of speaking and the sound of your voice are also very, very powerful. The number of vocal disfluencies, as well as many other sound properties such as pitch, intensity, speaking rate, and so on, influence how others perceive you. When you feel ready, I strongly advise you to begin exploring these vocal features in order to become more effective, aware, and deliberate when you speak. That's all for now. Thank you for listening. If you're interested in other talks or other work I do, please contact me, visit phoebeohan.com, or follow me on TikTok or LinkedIn.